Hello, welcome to this Computer Weekly CW500 Club video. I'm Brian Glick, I'm the Editor-in-Chief of Computer Weekly, and we're here at our monthly get-together of IT leaders, and this month we've been talking about IT outsourcing, an often controversial subject and one that has been through a lot of change in recent years. After the crash in 2008, we saw a lot of organisations moving away from the old-style big mega outsourcing deals, but recently, in the last couple of years, there's been a bit of a resurgence and a lot of organisations are turning back to IT outsourcing. Now, to discuss where outsourcing is going, I'm joined by Nick Roberts. Nick is the head of ICT at the London Borough of Croydon. He's also president of Socketim, the local government user group. Nick, thank you so much for coming along and joining us tonight. You've had a lot of experience of outsourcing in the local government arena, in public sector generally. After 5 years of austerity, what's the state of IT outsourcing in public sector at the moment?
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I think often you look at government and perhaps local government as being a little behind the curve of the commercial retail sector. So where you mentioned that many organisations have moved away from outsourcing, perhaps going back to it now, there's probably in government you're seeing quite a lot of outsourced contracts still in place. And they've come about perhaps because the journey has been, particularly us, I remember, in local government, we used to build everything. We used to have our own developers, we used to develop the applications, and then we moved to buying in packaged applications. So we lost a lot of the skills for development. And then the organisation, often politically, decided IT perhaps wasn't one of the core services, so we'd take more of a client commissioning role. So we would outsource that capability to an outsourced provider. And many organisations are still in that position where a large chunk of the operation is outsourced. And of course that brings a dilemma now, because as we move to very much a digitally centric way of working and recognising that the business is driving change, and we need to have an intimate understanding of the business to understand the transactions and the processes, to be able to not necessarily just buy an application, perhaps do some agile development and iterate it over and over again. Often the contracts that are in place just don't support that mentality at all. So we're finding a shift back to perhaps we need to stand up a new set of skills internally and bring back some of those things in-house.
Now, we're talking 2 weeks before a general election, so it's always a little difficult to predict what's going to happen in the public sector when we don't know what shape the next government is to come in and how their prioritisations for local government budgets are going to be. But with that caveat, what do you expect to see changing over the next few years in the sector?
Well, the one thing that's guaranteed is that within government, austerity is still hitting very hard. And we're seeing in some commercial retail sectors coming out of that now, investing a lot, innovating a lot. And in government, we're still perhaps halfway through the savings curve with very substantial savings yet to make. And the expectation is that by redeveloping and designing our transaction processes and changing the relationship with the citizen, we will make significant savings to the business. So definitely a trend there. It was interesting to see in George Osborne's budget that there was a specific reference to focusing on local public services and developing the support mechanisms and the knowledge and expertise to enable local public services to do digital better. And I welcome that. I think that's a good thing. The devil's in the detail, and actually understanding what we need is a very different matter.
So we shall see, but interesting times nonetheless. If you were, pooling all the experience that you've had of making outsourcing work in the public sector, if you were talking to one of your peers, whether they're private or public sector IT leader, if you give them one piece of advice that you think would be fundamental to making outsourcing work, what do you think that would be?
Well, for me, so many contracts I've seen have been built around current knowledge of what the provision is on day one. And the contract is put in place to deliver a really tight operation and to put all the metrics around business as usual, KPIs on service quality, the service credits are based on the operation. And the outsourcers are well aware that that's how we tend to operate. So they're coming with a very low bid to deliver the day-to-day operation, because the one guarantee in government, as in any business, is change. The only constant is change. And you get to day 2 of the contract and suddenly you need to change something. And there is a commercial complexity about asking for a proposal, put a change control notice in, cost it, is it competitive? It's very slow to go through that process. And you've got a whole load of commercials about additional cost on top of the contract just to keep up to date with the business. And so my one piece of advice would be build a contract that doesn't worry too much about the operation and the BAU, because it won't be there in a year's time. It will look different. Focus absolutely solidly on getting the model of change, get a system integrator model so that you don't rely on one person to provide all the solutions, because the chances are you'll select an outsourcer because of their particular knowledge on day one. They're really good in one area. 2 years down the line, a new technology will come in and they'll be behind the curve, and there'll be a bunch of SMEs that can deliver that brilliantly, but you can't access it easily because the contract prefers to go through your service provider. So build a contract that allows for a system integrator model, that allows for competition, transparency of costs, that doesn't reward the system integrator for delivering a solution himself, but rewards them for bringing together the right solutions from the best place with a clear, agreed, transparent margin. So that's what I would suggest.
Yes, it would make it sound so easy, Nick. Nick, thanks for coming on and speaking. Very much appreciate you sharing your experiences. That's all we've got time for on this video. You've heard from Nick Roberts, Head of ICT at London Borough of Croydon. If you go to our website at computerweekly.com, you'll be able to see video interviews with some of our other speakers from this event, as well as interviews with speakers from past CW500 club events as well. Thanks for watching.